If someone earning an average salary wanted to match Elon Musk's wealth, they would need to work for 80 million years. That's 30 times longer than human beings have even existed on this planet. And in the time it took you to read that sentence, Elon Musk just made another 88 lakh rupees. But here's the thing that will genuinely break your brain. Elon Musk is not the richest person in history. He's not even close. When you travel back through time, you find figures that make Elon look like he's struggling to pay rent. Let's start in 1980 with a Colombian businessman who revolutionized a very particular kind of industry. At his peak, Pablo Escobar was supplying 80% of a certain white powder to the entire world and pulling in $420 million every single week. But when you adjust his net worth for inflation, it lands at around $80 billion, which actually puts him below Elon on paper. The real difference, though, is that Escobar's wealth wasn't locked inside stock portfolios or company equity. It was physical cash, stacked in warehouses, buried in walls, rotting in fields. He spent $800 a week just on rubber bands to hold the notes together. Every year, $2 billion worth of his money simply decayed before he could spend it. So while the numbers may not crown him the richest in terms of raw, untouchable, hold-it-in-your-hands cash, Pablo Escobar was in a league of his own. The year is 1945. World War II has just ended. Millions of American soldiers are coming home to a blue-collar economy where entire families survived on a single income. The American dream was alive, and somewhere in the ruins of the old world sat one of the most powerful men alive, Joseph Stalin, the communist leader of the Soviet Union. Stalin had zero interest in personal wealth. Outside of his pipes and his books, the material world barely existed for him. According to his own son, Stalin never spent a single rupee of his salary. He didn't even look at it. So, why is he on this list? Because he didn't need money. With one stroke of a pen, he owned an entire country. You couldn't even tell a joke about him in private without risking your life. When Stalin suffered a stroke, nobody called a doctor for 12 hours, because everyone was too terrified that if he survived, he would execute them all for daring to interfere. The man controlled an economy worth $10 trillion in today's terms. Paper broke. Absolutely untouchable. In 1909, Adolf Hitler was homeless in Vienna, rejected from art school, selling small paintings just to afford a bed in a hostel. After fighting in World War I and attempting a failed government coup, he was sentenced to 9 months in prison. One would hope he used that time for self-reflection and personal growth. Instead, he wrote Mein Kampf. The book sold poorly at first, but as Germany's crisis deepened, its sales exploded. By 1933, when Hitler came to power, the book was everywhere. He then ordered the government to purchase 6 million copies of his own book and cleverly exempted himself from taxes on the royalties, pocketing $2 million in the process. He then copyrighted his own image, ensuring royalties every time his face appeared in print. He copyrighted his speeches, so newspapers had to pay him every time they were published. Through these side hustles alone, Hitler became a millionaire. Between 1933 and 1944, he also received an estimated $5 billion in donations from supporters. But his true wealth lay in military conquest. By 1942, Germany controlled most of Europe, and the looting that followed built an empire worth roughly $3 trillion in today's money. While dictators were building empires through fear and force, one man was quietly reshaping civilization through industry. Henry Ford made a radical decision. He doubled his workers' wages from $2 to $5 a day, cut the work week from 6 days to 5, and introduced the assembly line. Inspired by the efficiency of a meat processing line, Ford arranged his workers in sequence, and the result was staggering. The production time for the Model T dropped from 12 hours to 90 minutes. The price fell from $850 to just $2. For the next 50 years, the Model T was the best-selling car in history. But Ford's greatest invention wasn't the car or the assembly line, it was the suburb. When cars became affordable and accessible to ordinary people, families began moving out of crowded cities. The daily commute was born. The 5-day work week became standard. The concept of the middle class, a working family with a home, a car, a weekend, that entire way of life traces back to one man sitting in a factory in Detroit. Henry Ford's $2 billion empire barely scratches the surface of his true legacy. But Ford's rise would never have been possible without the era that came before him. In the late 1800s, the telephone, the telegraph, and the light bulb were just being invented. Pollution was being invented alongside them. Work-life balance did not exist. It was more of a work-life death situation. The stage was set for maximum capitalism, and 3 men ruled it all. First came Cornelius Vanderbilt, the king of American railroads, who died holding more wealth than the entire GDP of Pakistan. Then came Andrew Carnegie, who built his fortune in steel and then spent the rest of his life giving it all away. A genuinely good man. by all accounts. But the richest of the three, and perhaps one of the richest humans to ever walk the earth, was John D. Rockefeller. In 1870, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil and systematically destroyed every competitor through a combination of ruthless innovation and even more ruthless business practices. By 1880, he controlled 90% of all oil refineries in America. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court declared Standard Oil an illegal monopoly and broke it into 34 separate companies. Most people assumed this destroyed him. In reality, Rockefeller held ownership stakes in all 34 new companies and became even richer. He became the world's first billionaire. At his peak in 1913, his wealth equaled 2% of America's entire GDP. Adjusted to today, that's somewhere between $400 and $500 billion. Before Rockefeller, before Ford, before any of them, there was a family that didn't just profit from the world, they bankrolled it. In 1744, a young Jewish boy named Mayer Amschel Rothschild was born into poverty. He started as a coin dealer and built himself into one of Europe's most powerful bankers. In the early 1800s, he sent his 5 sons to the 5 major financial centers of Europe: London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, Naples, and instructed them to build. Before the telephone existed, the Rothschilds had created a private banking network that spanned an entire continent. They financed wars. They funded massive infrastructure projects like the Suez Canal. They lent money to entire nations. Because Jewish families were historically banned from owning land in most of Europe, the Rothschilds invested in stocks and bonds instead, assets that couldn't be seized or burned. And to keep their wealth within the family, they practiced strategic cousin marriages for generations, ensuring no outside bloodline could inherit their fortune. At their absolute peak, the Rothschild family was the wealthiest dynasty in human history. Their most powerful individual, Nathan Rothschild of London, had a net worth estimated at around $20 billion in today's money. A seemingly modest number, until you consider that he achieved it in an era with no electricity, no cars, and no stock exchanges as we know them. Go back further. The year is 1324. An African king sets out on a pilgrimage. His name is Mansa Musa, ruler of the Mali Empire. He travels with 60,000 soldiers and attendants, all of them draped in thousands of kilograms of gold. Along the way, he distributes gold so generously that he single-handedly crashes the Egyptian economy, causing such severe inflation that it took over a decade to recover. He then returned and bought it all back, causing another crash in the opposite direction. Wherever he walked, chaos followed, not from violence, but from sheer, incomprehensible wealth. He became so famous that he appeared on world maps, drawn in gold. Medieval cartographers in Europe didn't know what to do with him, except draw him sitting on a throne, holding a golden orb, radiating wealth like a sun. Calculating his exact net worth is nearly impossible. All records are secondhand. No official documentation survives. But many historians believe he controlled 50% of all the gold in the world at the time. The most commonly cited estimate is $400 billion, the original flexor, and he did it all without Instagram. Go back another 100 years, and you find a man whose wealth was measured not in gold or cash or stocks, but in land. In the early 1200s, Genghis Khan conquered more territory than any human being in history. The Mongol Empire covered nearly 20% of the Earth's entire surface. By that metric alone, his estimated net worth in today's terms would be $130 trillion. But here's the twist. Khan never actually kept what he conquered. Every city he destroyed, every territory he seized, he distributed among his soldiers to keep them loyal. Personal wealth meant nothing to him. What he loved was the conquest itself. What he craved was not gold. It was the power to reshape the world by force, and then give it away. Looking at these numbers side by side, it seems obvious that Elon Musk is nowhere near the top. But numbers don't tell the whole story. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. In 1913, Rockefeller's wealth equaled 2% of America's GDP. Today, Elon Musk's wealth equals approximately 1.4% of America's GDP. Rockefeller had a larger slice of the pie. But here's the twist. America's economy today is 22 times larger than it was in 1913. Rockefeller had a bigger piece of a much smaller cake. Elon Musk is the biggest fish in the biggest lake that has ever existed. And unlike every dictator, emperor, or warlord on this list, Elon's wealth is entirely his own. No armies maintain it. No fear sustains it. No conquered territories keep it alive. He can do whatever he wants with it, answer to no one, and wield technologies that would look like witchcraft to every single person on this list. That is why, by any honest modern measure, Elon Musk is the richest human being in history. Someone will surpass him eventually. That's how history works. But right now, in this moment, no one who has ever lived has commanded wealth like this, freely, personally, and with the full power of the most advanced civilization that has ever existed behind them. History doesn't repeat itself, but wealth always finds someone new to crown.